Okay, so today I'll be discussing the poem Spring Cleaning Your Relationships by KASS GHAYOURI. So in my presentation, I'll be analyzing two parts. One analysis being based on the story, such as its mood, tone, and context. The other being based on its literature, more specifically, its literary devices. So I'm just going to read the poem to you first. Spring has arrived, renewal and rebirth. You spring clean your home, got rid of that junk, kept what is needed, got rid of the useless. Spring has arrived. Spring clean relationships. Get rid of those friends, those that use you, even those that abuse you, the ones that backstab. Friends that are jealous, wearing a cloak with a dagger. Friends that are envious, wearing that friendly mask. Ones that gossip behind your back. They belong behind your back. Spring has arrived. It's time to move forward. Get rid of those superficial friends. Clear that negative path. Make room for new friends. It's a spiritual cleansing. Next. So first, before we get to the literary part of the poem, I want to break down this message first. So, in order to get a better understanding before picking out its literary devices. So first, I'll define the tone and mood and talk about their placement in the poem. So, the tone is the attitude of the author towards the subject. So, the attitude that the author has towards the subject is that people will deceive you. You'll let people who you thought were your friends, but they end up letting you down or become treacherous. The tone is also that negative people must be cut off, as they will only cause you grief. Finally, the tone states that allowing only positive people in your life will do wonders. Now the mood, which is how the reader should feel once the poem is finished. So the reader should feel informed and alert about fake people. The reader should also understand that people can be treacherous and can betray you, and that the reader must learn to cut off these kinds of people. Next. So now onto the actual literary devices of the poem. So these are the three major ones that I found in this poem, but there's a few others too. Those being a metaphor, which is a figure of speech in which a word or phrase is applied to an object or action to which is not literally applicable. Hyperbole, which is an exaggerated statement or claims that are not meant to be taken literally. And then an oxymoron, which is a figure of speech in which apparently contradictory terms appear in conjunction. Next. So this is the first section of the poem. So spring has arrived, renewal and rebirth. You spring clean your home, got rid of that junk. The two underlined parts are the literary devices I'll focus on. So renewal and rebirth is a comparison to starting over and starting fresh. Because it doesn't have an actual, you're not literally thinking of being reborn, so it makes it a metaphor. Then get rid of that junk compares toxic friends to garbage, and rightfully so, since this comparison also qualifies it as a metaphor. Also, unlike an extra pieces, this entire section on the slide can also be made into an analogy with a comparison of disposing of toxic friends to spring cleaning. Next. So the next part, the next section is spring has arrived. Spring clean relationships. Get rid of those friends, those that use you, even those that abuse you, those that backstab. So the first point is spring cleaning relationships is a comparison to start discarding toxic people that you do not need. That's a metaphor. Get rid of those friends, those that use you, even those that abuse you is an oxymoron, as no friend would actually do any of these things to you. So that's not a friend, that's an adversary. Those that backstab is an over-exaggeration, which makes it a hyperbole. No one is actually stabbing the author in the back physically. It's just used as a way to emphasize a point in literature, which qualifies it as a hyperbole. Next. Friends that are jealous, wearing a cloak with a dagger. Friends that are envious, wearing that friendly mask. Ones that gossip behind your back. They belong behind your back. Wearing a cloak with a dagger is a metaphor for being deceitful. It's not a literal term, as no one is actually wearing a cloak while wielding a dagger, which qualifies it as a metaphor. The second point is wearing that friendly mask is a metaphor for being two-faced, meaning that the friendly mask is a cover-up for how you actually are towards a person. The third point is they belong behind your back is a comparison to cutting off toxic friends, and it doesn't have a literal meaning as in they don't physically have to be behind you. It's just a metaphor, which means you don't associate with these kinds of people anymore. Next. Spring has arrived. It's time to move forward. Get rid of superficial friends, clear that negative path, make room for new friends. It is a spiritual cleansing. The first point, it is time to move forward, is a metaphor for leaving toxic friends in the past, and is a metaphor for leaving toxic friends in the past and to like. One second. The first point, it is time to move forward, is a metaphor for leaving toxic friends in the past and to start anew when it comes to friend groups. The second point, clear that negative path, is another metaphor for dismissing toxicity and removing anything negative in your life. The third point is spiritual cleansing. While you can argue it's a metaphor, I believe it's a hyperbole since it's an over-exaggeration used to emphasize how important something is. Next. Let's see.
Thank you.